I get the same comment from women, whether they be in the Torah movement, Jewish, Catholic Church, Christian Church. You get the same comment. If you call them, not even just call them a fool, right? If you quote the prophets where the prophets call them fools for doing the things that they've just done or saying the things that they've just said, if you then quote the prophets without quotation marks and say the exact same thing that Jeremiah said, or in Deuteronomy 32, they are sottish. No, it's Jeremiah that says that they're sottish. In Deuteronomy 32, they're called fools for doing the Christmas tree. Same thing in Jeremiah 10. The Messiah himself said, "O fools and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken." He's saying, you idiots, for being so slow to actually understand and believe what the prophets have spoken. Because if you had the spirit of prophecy, and to get the spirit of prophecy, you need to obey God, which means the full counsel of God, not the whole Torah, the whole instruction within that Torah. So the women in the Torah movement, we need to do the feasts. Yes, it says do the feast forever when you're in your inheritance and at the appointed time. So if Yah tells you in prophecy, see, this is the thing, if you actually kept the covenant and weren't presumptuous and weren't arrogant and weren't covetous, because these are all the reasons why people wake up a little bit and then they shut off, they stop listening. If you actually went the whole distance and kept listening to the full counsel of God, you would have received the spirit of prophecy and he would have answered all of your questions. When do we do the feast? Why don't I understand when the right day is? Why is this person doing it this day and this person doing it that day? Some people say, it doesn't matter. Some people say, I've figured out the calendar. It should be neither. If you're even thinking, for me, I do it this day, but if you want to do it that way, if you want to do it that day, it says at the appointed time, the Day of Atonement. If you didn't do it to the day, you were cut off. This is why he's saying that you're profaning his holy things in Ezekiel 22. In Hosea 8, you're doing his sacrifices and eating them, but he doesn't accept them. Why? Because you're profaning them, because you're not listening to the great things in his law, Deuteronomy 12 and 16. But also, the underlying spiritual condition is that you wouldn't fulfill the royal law and find the lost sheep. That's what Hosea 8 is saying. And that's what Isaiah 1 and Isaiah 66 is saying. You wouldn't fulfill the royal law. You wouldn't go and find your neighbor. You wouldn't go back to the Christians. You wouldn't go back to the church that you came out of and go and tell them to keep the 10 Commandments. You wouldn't listen the whole way. You got puffed up. You don't care about the people. You care about yourself. And that's why you're feasting right now. And that's why you won't listen when Jacob tells you the feasts are forever in your inheritance at the appointed time. You have to listen to the full instruction. But if you actually listened, you would receive the spirit of prophecy. And you would see in prophecy that Yah said, you don't have to worry about Paleo-Hebrew. I'm going to restore the pure lip in Zephaniah 3:9, which is the kingdom. He would have told you that I actually took away the calendar, so you can't restore it now. I actually took away the feast from you because you did the Christmas tree and I kicked you out of your inheritance. So you're still scattered and in captivity. So no, you're in jail. Why are you feasting? No, the Messiah came to refresh the 10 Commandments so that you would keep the 10 Commandments, receive the Spirit of God, and go and teach others to keep the 10 Commandments. Not so that you can feast and party and have your hands full of blood and profane his holy things. It's just so frustrating. So because you do that, I then call you a fool and quote the prophets word for word, or quote the Messiah, "O slow of heart and fools." Sottish. Paul, "O foolish Galatians." Proverbs, "He that hates correction is a fool." That's an idiot by definition. It's the same thing. But now if someone calls you, if I say, you are spiritually retarded, people are like, that's not very Christ-like. The Messiah did that all the time. Because even when people say, he was talking to the Pharisees, not normal people. He says to the Pharisees that their proselytes are twice the children of hell than they are. Think about, it's like when he says, you hypocrites, you know what the weather's going to be like tomorrow, but you can't discern the times that you're in. We're in the time of full-blown fables. Will you wake up? So arrogant. Titus 1:13-14, sharply rebuke the fables. Sharply rebuke the fables. Fulfill the royal law with all authority. Let no one despise your authority. You know why he says that? Because everyone's going to despise you. And another reason why the servants fall is because when you're despised, they get offended. Jacob won't get offended. It might hurt him, but it won't stick. And he'll continue. And that's the patience of the saints. The royal law is the patience of the saints. Because in the parable of the seed sower, there's only one group that actually overcomes. Some of them get choked out by covetousness and they go back to the ways of the world. Some of them just get scorched immediately, and then the others, they get offended because this is hard work. So